This one, should I use? Does it matter? You're probably all going to walk out halfway through anyway. I must say, I was rather surprised to be here after having last year described this conference as a giant wank fest. Anyway, anybody who reads AdsCam will realize that that's fairly mild to most of the things I say. I was going to call this presentation, and by the way, I don't have any slides or PowerPoint or Facebook friends or Twitters or anything like that. It's just going to be me talking. And originally I was going to call it Knocking Down the Walls Before Blowing Up the Silos, because those are the two cliches you will find on every BDA website. And readers of AdsCam will know BDA means Big Dumb Agency. That, and also being the next agency of the future, most of which have ended up being agencies of the past. So, firstly, big thanks to Nancy and Kip for allowing me to grace the stage of this conference. And as I say, I'm somewhat surprised, but I'm honored, and hopefully you'll enjoy what I'm going to say, which will only take about 3 minutes, by the way, unless you want to drag it on further. Okay, my take on the current state of the ad biz can be summed up by one of the titles in the blog, which is George Orwell's definition of what we do. Advertising is the rattling of a stick inside a swill pail. So, I mean, he said that a long time ago, but it's still true in some respects. So how do we transform the business as it exists today? It's rather simple, really. And it's got nothing to do with Facebook, Twitter, social media, crowdsourcing, word of mouth, or any of the other, flavors of the month that we all talk about. And we certainly don't talk about MySpace anymore after Rupert Murdoch, who I describe on the blog as the Wizard of Oz, who was described as a genius 3 or 4 years ago when he stole MySpace for a mere $600 million. And now he's bleeding through the eyes. But anyway, when I speak at conferences and seminars and ad clubs around the country and also to students, I very often get asked one question over and over again, which is, as I've been in advertising since Genghis Khan invented the USP, I must have seen many, many changes. And at first, I would attempt to answer that with several, ideas, but it's all boiled down to two main differences in the almost 40 years that I've been in the business. The first one, of course, is the advent of the internet and then the growth from that of social networking, which is huge these days, and rightly so. But the other one, which I think is even more important, is what I call the conglomerization of the business. In other words, virtually all the BDAs, with the exception of Wyden, now belong to one of 4 holding companies. And the thing about those holding companies is that they're all publicly traded and they're all run by bean counters or ex-insurance sellers in the case of Interpublic. And it means that their major concern now is about making the quarterly numbers. Or, as the CFO of a major BDA once said, when he was informed that they'd just won a very prestigious account, well known for allowing the agencies to do excellent creative work, fuck the work, what about the money? The management of every single BDA should now, this is my proposition, the management of every BDA should engage in a leveraged buyout to cut themselves off from the umbilical of the respective holding company, which is daily costing them upwards of 30% of their income, and then get back to the business of creating advertising rather than spreadsheets. Clients were happier, stayed around much longer when we stuck to our knitting, creating great work that delivered measurable results for a fair and agreed price. We don't need any more agencies of the future, like the last unfortunate example, which lasted less than 2 years, and which the other constituent agencies of that holding company will be paying for a very long time in the future. We should look back to the agencies of the past and figure out what it was that made them great. As David Ogilvy said on the very last page of Confessions of an Advertising Man, which I would urge you to reread, even though it's 45 years old, when he was asked if advertising should be abolished, no, he said, it must be transformed. It must be reformed. So perhaps instead of talking about transformation, we should be talking about reformation. I've got a couple of minutes for questions, but nobody can answer me that. Or you can meet me in the bar downstairs in about 10 minutes. That's it.